A powerful storm system swept across southern Manitoba this week, leaving behind major damage and triggering confirmed tornado reports in multiple areas. Officials say at least 2 tornadoes touched down as the dangerous weather moved through the region, while several additional reports are still being investigated. According to Environment Canada, 1 tornado was confirmed near St. Anne, located roughly 30 kilometers southeast of Winnipeg. Another tornado was later confirmed near the community of Drost, east of Morris and about 50 kilometers south of Winnipeg. The storm caused widespread destruction across several communities. Heavy flooding covered roads and neighborhoods, strong winds knocked down trees and power lines, and massive hailstorms damaged thousands of vehicles. In Winnipeg, hailstones ranged from the size of nickels all the way up to tennis balls. In some rural areas, residents reported hail as large as baseballs. The damage is now leading to an overwhelming number of insurance claims. Manitoba Public Insurance says nearly 11,000 vehicle damage claims had already been filed by Wednesday evening, and officials expect that number to rise even higher. Maria Campos, Vice President of Manitoba Public Insurance, says this could become the largest claim event in the organization's history. That would surpass the major hailstorm in 2023, which resulted in almost 16,000 claims and cost around $140 million in damages. At this point, officials still don't know exactly how many of the current claims are coming from Winnipeg compared to rural communities. They're also still working to determine how much of the damage was caused by hail, falling tree branches, or floodwaters on city streets. Campos is asking residents for patience as crews work through the growing number of reports. She says the organization is planning to create a centralized hail damage center to better handle customer demand and speed up the process. Meanwhile, Manitoba hydro crews have been working around the clock to restore electricity after the storm knocked out power to tens of thousands of customers. Spokesperson Peter Chura says the company has made major progress, calling it one of the worst summer storm events the region has experienced in recent memory, especially when it comes to the sheer number of outages reported. At the peak of the storm, around 32,000 customers lost power. By Thursday morning, that number had dropped significantly, with roughly 1,400 Winnipeg customers still waiting for electricity to be restored. Chura also mentioned that another round of thunderstorms overnight slowed repair efforts, but crews continue working non-stop to get power fully restored as quickly as possible. For many residents across southern Manitoba, the cleanup process is only just beginning. Many of the customers still without electricity in Winnipeg are located in neighborhoods like the West End, North Kildonan, and the St. Boniface area. Officials also say around 2,000 customers in other parts of Manitoba continue to deal with outages as repair crews struggle to reach certain locations because floodwaters have washed out roads. In western Manitoba, conditions have been especially difficult in the community of Matlock. Flooding from storms over the weekend caused serious damage to homes, including electrical panels that were destroyed by water. Manitoba Hydro says crews are now working directly with homeowners to safely restore electricity wherever possible. Hydro officials say their goal is to have power restored for customers both inside Winnipeg and across the province by the end of Thursday. But for many residents, the impact of the storm has already become overwhelming. Winnipeg resident Dan Leonard says he's been without electricity in his West End home since Tuesday evening. Along with the outage, he's also dealing with a flooded basement filled with the smell of mold and sewage. Without power, he can't even run the pump needed to remove the water. Leonard says his biggest concern right now is the health and safety of his children. He says he's worried about what his family is breathing inside the house and what kind of long-term damage the flooding could cause. On top of that, he knows the financial costs are only beginning to pile up. The storm also forced him to throw away all the food in his refrigerator, and without electricity, his family still has no hot water. To make matters worse, Leonard had just started renovating his basement. He says new drywall had only been installed a day before the flooding hit, and now much of it will likely need to be torn out and replaced again. He says he's still unsure whether insurance will cover all of the damage. But Leonard says his concerns go beyond his own home. He worries about others in the West End community who may not have the financial resources to recover from the storm. According to him, many families in the neighborhood are already struggling, and replacing damaged furniture, repairing flooded basements, or even restocking spoiled groceries can become a major financial burden. He also mentioned that one of his neighbors is dealing with the extended power outage while caring for a newborn baby. Leonard says he understands that hydro crews are under enormous pressure trying to restore service across the province, and he's trying to stay patient and compassionate. Still, after days without power and growing damage inside his home, he admits that frustration is beginning to set in for many residents waiting for help. Experts are now warning residents to take extreme caution when dealing with flooded basements, especially in homes where sewage backup has occurred. Microbiologist Jason Tetro says floodwater coming through sewer systems can contain dangerous bacteria and harmful contaminants from human waste. According to him, once sewage enters a home, the environment can quickly become extremely hazardous to health. He explains that many people's first reaction is to rush downstairs and try to save furniture, personal belongings, or electronics, but he says that can actually put people at serious risk. Warm and humid conditions inside flooded basements create the perfect environment for bacteria and mold to spread rapidly. At first, exposure may lead to stomach-related illnesses, but as contamination builds over time, the risks become much more severe. Tetro says prolonged exposure can cause skin irritation, eye infections, and serious respiratory problems, especially once mold starts spreading through walls, carpets, and furniture. For anyone attempting to clean up flood damage, he strongly recommends using proper protective equipment. That includes covering exposed skin, wearing waterproof footwear and gloves, and using both safety goggles and an N95 mask to reduce exposure to harmful particles in the air. Still, he warns that basic household cleaning products may not be enough in situations involving major sewage contamination. According to Tetro, restoring a home safely often requires professional cleanup crews trained to handle hazardous flood conditions. He says simply using bleach and trying to clean everything alone may not fully remove the health risks left behind. Meanwhile, meteorologists continue to analyze just how intense this week's storm system really was. The storm reportedly began south of Emerson in the United States before moving north across Manitoba. It tore through the Red River Valley and continued into parts of the southern Interlake region, bringing destructive winds, torrential rainfall, hail, and tornado activity. Some communities saw staggering rainfall totals. Stonewall, located north of Winnipeg, recorded around 255 millimeters of rain. Petersfield and Clandeboye, northeast of Stonewall, received more than 220 millimeters each. Winnipeg itself was hit with roughly 122 millimeters of rainfall, while many other communities across southern Manitoba reported between 50 and 100 millimeters. The storm also produced extremely powerful wind gusts. In the Delarine area near the Saskatchewan border, winds reportedly reached speeds of around 130 kilometers per hour. Several other areas experienced gusts exceeding 100 kilometers per hour, while Winnipeg recorded peak winds close to 94 kilometers per hour. Officials also received multiple reports of tornado activity throughout the Red River Valley and surrounding regions. So far, 2 tornadoes have been officially confirmed, while investigators continue reviewing additional reports. Residents across the region also reported seeing numerous funnel clouds as the severe weather system moved through Manitoba, leaving behind one of the most destructive summer storms the province has faced in years. The Manitoba government says emergency crews and provincial staff are now being deployed across flood-affected communities as officials begin assessing damage to highways, roads, and water infrastructure after the powerful storms. According to a government statement released Monday evening, teams are working quickly to respond to rapidly changing conditions in several hard-hit areas across the province. In the Swan Valley region, flash flooding forced as many as 150 residents to leave their homes after intense rainfall overwhelmed roads and neighborhoods. Environment and Climate Change Canada says the area received nearly 72 millimeters of rain within just a few hours on Sunday night. Manitoba Infrastructure Minister Lisa Naylor says emergency management officials are coordinating closely with local municipalities to make sure displaced residents continue receiving food and support. She explained that while many people have already evacuated, a small number of residents are still choosing to remain in their homes for now. According to Naylor, those individuals are staying in regular contact with local authorities and are believed to be safe at the moment. Officials have not yet released details about where evacuated residents are being housed, saying emergency management teams are still organizing accommodations and logistics with community leaders. As floodwaters continue rising in some areas, crews have now started sandbagging homes in parts of Swan Valley West in an effort to prevent additional damage. The province's Hydrologic Forecast Center is also warning that more rainfall could arrive over the next few days, potentially making conditions even worse. Naylor says if roads become too damaged for trucks and emergency vehicles to pass through safely, the province may consider using helicopters to deliver food and supplies into isolated communities. She says the situation remains extremely unpredictable and could continue changing hour by hour as water levels shift throughout the region. Meanwhile, neighboring municipalities are also taking emergency action. The municipality of Manitoba has officially declared a local state of emergency following the severe flooding. Schools in the region are also being impacted. Rob Tomlinson, superintendent of the Swan Valley School Division, says the school in Manitoba has remained dry so far, but staff members describe the building as being surrounded by water like an island. Because of unsafe road conditions, most school bus services across the division were canceled on Tuesday, and officials say cancellations will likely continue for the rest of the week. Tomlinson says school officials are monitoring the situation closely and making decisions day by day depending on how conditions develop. The storm has also led to dramatic rescue stories from residents caught in the flooding overnight. 62-year-old farmer Ian McKay says rushing water completely destroyed part of his property near the West Favell River north of Manitoba. McKay says he returned home around 3 in the morning and discovered that the small river near his property had exploded in size after hours of heavy rainfall. According to him, the river had only been around 12 feet wide earlier in the evening, but by the time he returned home, he says it had expanded to nearly 900 feet across. The flooding had torn a massive gap through his front yard, leaving his wife trapped inside their home. To rescue her, McKay used a hydraulic excavator to carefully reach the house through the floodwaters. He says his wife stepped out into water that was already about a foot deep before climbing onto the machine so he could safely carry her back across the damaged property. Across Manitoba's parkland region, many residents in communities like Swan Valley West and Manitoba are now facing the difficult reality of cleanup, evacuations, and uncertain recovery after one of the region's most destructive flooding events in recent years.